Welcome to the Amplify Imagination podcast, where bold voices, big ideas, and boundary pushing conversations come to life, straight from the heart of the APSS Convention 2025. The topic for our session today is earning, grabbing, and holding attention. And to talk about this very exciting topic, I have with me here Anneli Blundell, Vaibhav Nahata, and Marta Pardo. Would you guys do me the honor of please introducing yourselves, because that's my favorite kind of introduction. We'll start with you, Anneli.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Damini. Hello, everyone. My name is Anneli, professional keynoter, and delighted to be here at the APSS conference. I help people get heard at work. So this is about building conversations that work at work.
I'm Vaibhav Nahata, and I'm happy to be here. I run a video marketing company for speakers called Speaker Videos. I'm an expert at SCNC, which means stealing chocolates and cupcakes from my mom's bakery. And I suffer from the G syndrome, which has everything to do with energy just coming out. That's what I do. I help people use videos to get their name out there and grab attention.
Love that. Thank you. Marta.
Hello. Thank you, Damini, for being here. And thank you all the way from Spain coming here. I'm an international speaker. I'm also master of ceremony, author and coach in English, French, and Spanish, my mother tongue. I just help people to motivate themselves, to transform their leadership, and everything with audacity. And of course, customer experience.
Thank you. So, as you can all see, there's a varied sort of experience set and specialties here between the three of you. And for those of you who don't know, I'm Dr. Damini Chawla. I'm the host of this panel. And I am a dentist and a keynote speaker, and I'm a communication coach. So this is very, very exciting because obviously, I got to pick my panel, and you are some of my favorite people to talk about. And having been to your sessions in the past, and I think, Marta, you've got one tomorrow, getting attention from your audience and from stakeholders is a big part of obviously what you all do and what you help other people do. So I'm going to just dive into some questions that I prepared, and then we'll see how the conversation flows. So I'm actually going to go with Happy first. Happy, let's be real. What's harder today? Grabbing attention or actually deserving it?
I believe deserving attention is harder because there are many ways to grab attention, especially in our understanding of how content and social media and videos work. It's very easy to grab attention, right? You can do something random and have a good music play up and you can grab attention, right? But the question is not just about grabbing attention, but why are people having the attention into you? And that's where the aspect of deserving it comes in. Are you adding value to people is the question mark that we're living at. So there are ways to grab attention, and one of the ways to grab attention is by giving value. There are other ways to grab attention, that is by dancing, by showing something funny, by doing something stupid, by making someone cry, all the other things that can grab your attention. But hey, you don't deserve it because you're not adding value in a way as well. So I would believe it is harder to deserve attention. You can just grab it. I can grab attention. I'm good at it.
What do you have to say, Anneli, about that?
Yeah, it's interesting because hello, my name's Anneli. I do doom scrolling sometimes. And I can confess that when I am doom scrolling, there's lots of videos that grab my attention. But do I want to then follow this person? Do I want to learn from this person or be guided by their wisdom? I might not have seen any wisdom. That might be why they grabbed my attention. So I really think that if you want to cut through and make a difference, yes, grab the attention, but you really do need to have substance behind that initial grabbing of the attention.
So if you have the substance, right? I've seen lots of speakers who have a lot of substance and they're talking about things that are important and interesting and deep and meaningful. But more and more we're seeing sort of data and research come out that human beings just have less attention spans. So how does that work then? I could be saying something really meaningful, but we're going to need to do things to keep people's attention then, right? So how do you, each of you specifically, find that perfect marriage between adding value through substance and then constantly trying to get people's attention over and over again? Do you want to go, Marta?
It's a good question, actually, because I think depending of the balance that you need to have, you need to have a balance. So definitely grabbing attention is very weird, because I'm not agree with with happy, because it's true that grabbing attention sometimes you can put music, you can grab the attention, but really the people is going to stay during a lot of time with this attention? That's one question that we need to ask ourselves as speakers. And then the other way around is, like, as you just said, you need to deserve it. And at the same time, you need to have the intention. And if the people is in the other side, in the audience, looking at you because you grabbed the attention, but you didn't deserve it, the intention probably is not there. So
actually, I mean, you're all kind of saying the same thing, right? In a way that you have to add value, and that's the key to earning the attention, and that's the harder part, because anyone can put on a song and dance and be fun. Okay, so we're talking about this from the perspective of speakers and how we first grab attention. But if I were to think about this in a more real world sort of perspective, and often we don't, as with our clients, a lot of our clients are not speakers for all of us. So when we talk about this outside of the speaking industry, and people have to command a room, whether it's a corporate setting or, they're presenting a research paper or something, when they have to get buy-in, what are things that they can do to really earn that and command that attention? You go, Anneli. Anneli's like bursting.
Looking at me.
I'm looking at you because
Eyeing
you look
me
like
off.
you have things to say. Go on.
It's facilitator eyes. Never make eye contact with the facilitator. So grabbing it. Okay, let's go to the context of I'm in a meeting. I'm a leader who's running a meeting, and this also goes for speakers on stage. So we can translate this to different contexts. So if I'm in a meeting room, I want to think about what's going on for people around me, what's the context that they're in, and that will give me an idea about how much work I need to do to grab their attention and keep their attention. If there's stuff going on in, around the business and the culture, and there's just made an announcement and people are getting laid off, and, people are distracted and they're worried and they're in a fear state, it's not a good time to do a dry, boring update. Your audience is gone. So for me, it's about understanding what's going on in the context and being able to read the room and adapt accordingly. If I'm going to bombard you with boring stats, I deserve you to snooze in my face, because nobody is interested in that, right? We need to make sure that we are constantly drip feeding. I offer something, I check how it lands, and then I might adjust accordingly to make sure you're still with me in that conversation. Otherwise, I'm talking to myself.
I love how that's put together. I would take two different contexts. One being in a room setting, the other being at the stages part of things as well. When I'm in a room, there are 2 to 3 ways I can start by commanding the attention, right? The first is, if I'm the CEO of Disney and sitting in a room, I have that established right in the very beginning, right? So how can I establish credibility before I get into the room is an important question, either on stage or when I'm having a close conversation, or even for that matter in social media, right? If the CEO of Disney is talking about why Mickey Mouse has long heads, it would make more sense than any random person coming in, right? The second part of the thing is, of course, when it comes to closed room settings, I've always observed that leaders speak last. What I mean is they are synthesizing, they're observing, absorbing, and then coming about and speaking it. I have people who have more expertise. Anneli has better expertise, Marta, and better in terms of closed room settings. But what I've realized is, if I'm listening genuinely from a place of not trying to grab attention, but coming in from a place of giving value, I'll automatically grab that because I'm giving. The whole idea is, how can I give? How can I give? How can I give? That's where the piece of the puzzle is. And when it comes from the stage, in the world of social media, we say 7 seconds is all you got. The first 3 to 7 seconds is all you got to command your audience. The similar context in terms of stage is the initial part is important. But here's the critical part. When it comes to working on content or videos for that matter, for speakers as well, you need to have some newness happening every 7 to 10 seconds in the video in form of visual, in terms of content, in terms of context, to keep that audience engaged, because you lose them. They're doom scrolling. Similarly, on the stage case, that might translate into how can I make people do something? How can I ask an interesting question? Not 7 seconds, maybe that's 7 minutes now, but that's translated in a different setting. I am not, we have experts who know so much more in terms of physical spaces, and I love what Anneli shared over here. I'd love to hear Marta and you as well of what you think.
Well, go on, Marta.
Okay, well, for me, actually, probably will be based in, once again, in intention, and in the intention will be the clarity of the what you want to say it, also the purpose that you want to say it and how you want to say it, to make sure the person that you have in front and you're commanding, that type of whatever speech or trainer, whatever it's going to be, you need to be really, really precise what you're saying to grab at the same time the attention, and specifically have very, very active listening, because if you don't have that active listening, I think the person in front will say, okay, thank you, but that was not the point.
I absolutely love this, because everything that the three of you have said basically feeds into what I speak about. You're welcome. You're just like a living, breathing testaments to the fact that listening and deeply hearing your audience and the person that you're trying to communicate with is the key, actually, to being able to give them value, which then in turn is key to actually holding their attention or earning or grabbing or even deserving their attention. So bringing it back to speakers, and this really kind of is a question for you, but I want to hear from Anneli and Marta as well, because, I've seen your speaker reel. I haven't seen yours, Anneli, but I'm sure you have a fabulous one. What is it, as a speaker, how important is that, even before you get on a stage, you need to earn, so you need to have the validation in the marketplace of what you do. But what is it that you try to portray in that 2-minute video, and what should speakers be aiming to capture in their speaker reel so as to earn and grab that attention before they've even gotten on a stage?
You want me to start?
Go. You want to start.
I want to start. In this one, I want to start. Well, I will say the audacious part. I mean, for example, for me, if I'm talking about audacity, then you really need to show that you're audacious. If you were talking about listening, okay? If you're just doing a show reel that never shows that you are listening, probably the message will not go through. So audacity for me is one of my favorite topics, because in the show reel, you can really put that on, and the people that said, okay, she's audacious because I saw her like this. So show reel, and I think Happy will say that afterward, is so important that your storyboard fits with the message that you want to deliver, to make sure you grab the attention, the intention, and they buy, as a speaker, your speech or your business.
Yeah. Thank you. Anneli.
It's really interesting, because when I had my show reel done, I remember going back and forth with the editor, and we were talking about what we leave in and take out, because they're so short, right? And you want to put everything you say in that video, and you can't. And we played with a couple of things about what went in and what went out, and there was a huge difference in how I felt watching that video when he added things that showed audience engagement and when he took those things out. There were a couple of things that I went, oh, that looks a bit kitschy. I don't know about that. And he said, well, here's what it looks like without that. And I really understood that my stuff is about communication and connection. And so what people want to see is, can I connect with the audience? Are we in conversation? Are they with me? Not, am I sage from stage giving you all the content in the world? Interestingly, what I notice about other people's speakers' reels is that the more experienced you become as a speaker, the less content is shown in your reel. Think about it. So you've got big stages and big audiences, but often that speaker is just speaking to the camera, like I do this and I speak about this and some ideas, but they don't show you talking on stage necessarily about that content. But what they're wanting to demonstrate is I can hold the room. I can engage with your crowd. I can make it interesting. This is information that you don't just Google. Why are we showing stuff that you can just Google, right? It's about how you show up as a human in that space with the other humans. So for me, it was about energy and connection and how I was commanding the room with those things in mind.
Thank you. That's awesome. So, Vaibhav, in your experience, you're the guy who makes these speaker videos, right? So, obviously, people like me, I'm sure, regretting working with me, but people like me come to you and we give you like, really badly organized Google Drives full of video. And we say, make something meaningful out of this. So, what are you looking for when you're combing through that stuff? And what are the pieces that you want to put together to create something that's going to earn, grab, and hold attention?
So this comes in from a place of us. We've made over 50 demo videos now, a lot of CSPs, a lot of interesting speakers. And we believe now that we've done this over time, that demo video does not start at all unless the brand messaging is finalized. A lot of times what happens is speakers have their brand messaging that have different brand messaging, right? So they're talking about A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H. Having that clarity of what you want to have been known for is something that's very important. Number one. Number two, you can't have too many of them, right? You can't talk about A, B, C, D, E, and then I'm expert at A, B, C, D, E. You can't, maybe you are, but have different demo videos for different context then, right? That's number two. Number three is, now let's come back to, once you have nailed down what the message is, let's come to the story. Like, demo video is not a bunch of clips you put together to show that you speak often and you speak about everything. It's about making sure that it lines up as a story. It's a trailer. I love thinking of showreels like a trailer. A trailer of a movie. This is a trailer of a person. So you want to show what is most important, but then have a story behind it. Like, where is it escalating a conflict? How is it leading to, you providing a solution? How is it leading to you showing as an engaging person? All of that come into place. Now, coming down to the visual elements of it. As soon as you start working on the visual side of your demo video, you should be seen speaking in the first 5 seconds. Right? All of the crazy animation effects that can happen later, but people are buying into you as a speaker. So within the first 5 seconds, you want to have a visual of you speaking in stage or giving information to people, right? Once that is happening, there has to be an engagement element. Music plays a very important role. It's the most overlooked thing. People talk about footages and stuff like that, but you cannot have one music throughout the demo video. You need to make sure the vibe of the video is changing as the context is changing. So the music being played right, then comes the visual elements being used. Like, where do you use rotoscope to make the video interesting? Where do you come up with some animation to reflect what you're saying as well? And a lot of times you don't need to overdo it as well. Like, you don't have to have a picture coming in and flying from the sky and landing over there and then having a box appear up of a video. No, you don't need to do that. People buy into speakers as experts, and experts don't open up in like boxes. You know what I mean? So to show up as an expert, it's important to make sure the context is clear as well. And whoever you're working with, make sure you communicate what you want. Make sure you communicate what you are looking for exactly. And of course, these are a few things that help. But what I want to touch upon even more importantly is demo videos is seen by a person who's hiring you. Before you get on the stage, and I see 50, 70, 80% of the speaker not doing it, have a stage intro video. Most of the time you'll see it happens to me. Like, I don't speak for a living. That's not my profession anymore. But what we have realized is, before you go on the stage, someone is going to announce your name. You don't control how good or bad they are. You can have your introduction messed up all over the place.
Amen, brother. Yes. Preach it.
Right? So you need to start by having like a 30-second, 40-second video of a banger video, like showing why people should listen to you. So it's basically establishing credibility really quick, CEO of Coca-Cola, blah, 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 and then people saying it blew my mind, like 1 second testimonial clips coming together, and then a lot of energy being built up, and then welcome to the stage, Marta, Pardo, and then it comes on the stage, and now, here's the thing, you don't have to prove yourself now of why you're an important speaker.
So, as you're speaking, my brain is going into overdrive, right? And now I'm imagining my next keynote where basically there's this video playing and it's, giving all this context and it's like amazing voice and it's introducing me. And then there's a box on the stage and then I just pop out of the box. And then there she is. Speakers. Someone once told me speakers don't come out of boxes, but here I am, just grabbing your attention. Yeah, I'm just picturing.
Prove me wrong.
Well, you don't want to challenge me. Trust me. Okay, thank you. That's really, I feel like that's a lot of insight in terms of how we even get on a stage, right? How do we get in front of the right people? How do we grab their attention for long enough to actually get hired? I'm going to go a little bit dark because this is just who I am, right? No conversation is true and real if we haven't gone into the dark, twisted places. So my next question is, tell us about a moment when you lost your audience and how you brought them back. We start with you, Anneli.
I could see it in your eyes, Damini. I know where this is going. There have been a few occasions where this has happened, but one comes to my mind because it is burned in my brain. So I was on a stage once at a conference and it was a big room with really high ceilings. And for whatever reason, they had one of the doors open and it went straight to the outside and a bird flew in. And this bird, not only did it grab attention by flying in, but it sat up on the railing for a little bit and then it started swooping me on stage. Yes, and I have to tell you, I am petrified of birds. If I have one fear, it's birds. So imagine being swooped inside a studio, right, with this bird. So not only am I managing my state in a mild panic attack and just sort of dodging this bird, but I press on, that's fine. But of course, it's grabbed the audience's attention. I can't compete with a bird, a dive-bombing bird. So it stops, swooping me and it starts swooping random audience members. And I'm thinking, okay, so there's two choices here, right? You might have heard the show must go on and there's also go with the flow. And I think both of these were required in the situation. So there's no point me getting on with the show. Nobody is looking at me. Nobody cares about what I'm talking about. We're all looking at this dive-bombing bird waiting to be attacked. And so the whole audience rallied and everybody worked together to get this bird free. And it took a couple of minutes, but once that was done, the audience came back to me. So imagine if I had tried to press on, the show must go on. Again, I'm talking to nobody. They're looking everywhere else. So in that instance, my first inclination was to go with, let's follow the energy of the room, do what needs to be done. And now everyone has sorted that. Now they can come back to me. And now the show can go on. FYI, just while we're here, in the same keynote, because they opened all the windows, all the wind came in and knocked the banner down, which hit the water table. I mean, it was a moment.
You had a lot of
It was a moment.
to talk about,
Wow.
Was that a therapy session? Was that oversharing? I am okay. I've recovered, trust me.
We're feeling the birds coming.
All I can think about is when we started recording this, I was told because of the setup that we're using, we're not allowed to flap our arms like birds.
Of course.
All I want to do is flap my arms like a bird.
That's right.
Wow.
Can do it.
Okay. And did the audience give you more love as a result of you basically now being the savior of trapped birds?
Indeed, they did. They gave me all the love. And I think that's a great question, actually, because one of the things I think that is easy to assume when you're on stage and things go wrong is that people are going to blame you and they're going to, expect you to have been better. But actually what happens is they feel for you and it draws them closer in. So there's a beautiful phenomenon called the pratfall effect, which is basically if you muck up or you make a little bit of a mistake, people find you more relatable. However, the caveat is you have to already be credible, right? You can't be a fool and be foolish and think that's going to get you friends. It doesn't get you friends. So you have to already have established credibility. But then if something goes wrong, your tie's all funny, you've got 2 different shoes on, it doesn't matter. People will lean into you. So when that bird was on stage, I was doing my best literally not to panic. And after it flew out and everything was fine, I got to say, now might be the time to tell you that I'm literally petrified of birds. But I made it! And I had a big celebration and everybody, broke into applause. And I thought, how lovely. They're celebrating the fact that I did not faint.
I love
That's
it.
awesome. Vaibhav, do you have a story?
Have stories from stage as well. So there was this audience I was speaking in. I used to speak a lot. I've kind of walked away from it for certain reasons. Is I was speaking to a bunch of students in Amsterdam, and there was this school where there were no classes.
Okay.
There were no teachers. It was a very different kind of school. It was called the Agoda methodology of school. And I was supposed to give a speaking engagement. The interesting thing about the schools is it was a no rule school. So they're like students are not like, there are no teachers, students. It's like a very different kind of a school. So my stage for the keynote was the staircase. So I was basically speaking from the staircase, and the students were like basically sitting all over the lobby, and literally someone is sleeping on the table, someone is like, what's up? And then some people are just sitting tight, and all of them are looking at me like, what you got? What you got? Show me. But yeah, it was a very interesting experience because a lot of times physical environment of what you're speaking in, like as a speaker, when you have been speaking for a while, your content is your constant. Your slides are your constant. The audience is variable, right? But then if you speak to a certain niche, the audience is also kind of bit like it's more, understandable or expect, you can expect what is going to come. But the physical environment a lot of times is variable. So making sure you're compatible with that physical environment is very interesting. And to be honest, that was one of the most interesting engagements I had because the audience was just coming in from a very different place. So it was an oops moment when I got there. It was a what the heck am I going to do moment when I got there? But basically you find, and this is what Craig Valentine says, he's one of the, world champion, Toastmaster world champion speakers. He said, humor lies in instances that you have. So my speech started by, well, I'm on my ladder to success over here, and then
I love
you
that.
find places, like you find spaces and places for humor from where you're at. And then the engagement well up and it was very interesting. It happened out to be interesting. But yeah, that was an oopsie moment for me.
Thank you. Marta, do you have any?
Oh, I do have one. I'm going to be a little bit shorter, probably, because I was in Mexico. Actually, I was visiting my brother, and I had a gig, and I was also in a university with students, and not just the students, but teachers at the same time. And they actually said to me, "Okay, we want a 1.5 hour speech." And I was okay, no problem. And then I started is my keep driving speech. So I started with my keep driving. My brother was there because he's a professional race driver. He was there, and I was like, it was the first time he was there. And I just got in, and my energy was so high, and I didn't realize my mic was not working. So I continue, I continue, and my brother was like, stop like this, no? When you have a person in front that is just saying to you, okay, you need to stop. And I was continuing, oh, yes, sure. And then I realized after a while that I didn't have the right mic on. So another mic was on, and then you have this noise getting, because it was a mixed mics, the one for the show reel, actually, and the mic for the stage. And my brother was like, you need to cut off. And then your attention, because we're talking about grabbing your attention, he grabbed my attention. I was like, what? And my face was just like this. And everybody was laughing. And after a while, of course, it was 1 hour and a half, and I said to myself, okay, now you need to concentrate it back. You need to put your mic correctly and then start again, no? And to grab that attention back for me was really hard because of that moment and because it was 1 hour and a half. So I learned something. And then after I actually had a brief with my brother, okay, how was it? I was great. No, it wasn't, because you didn't realize your mics were not working. You grabbed the attention too late. So that the learning thing for me was like, then you need to stop. Then probably you need to make a joke, as you said, okay, humor, and then start again. So it was like, oh my God, what, this is gonna finish. I felt like it was a hard moment. And I think we all have those hard moments, is that how we come back in our inner you, to bring back the audience with you, laugh and have fun, and actually enjoy the talk. Because actually at that moment you're not enjoying, because you know there's a technical issue.
Yeah.
No?
I mean, this is exactly. So my next question actually was going to be, we've been talking a lot about earning, grabbing, and holding attention of the audience. And we're talking very much, for them, what we do for them. But actually in these types of moments when you feel like, and sometimes it's not as big as like completely losing an audience, but sometimes it's just like, oh, you can see the energy slipping in the room, right? Or you can see that like something you intended to land a certain way just hasn't been taken the right way, and I've had it happen to me where, people have this expectation that I'm hilarious on stage, and then sometimes I'll say the thing and you just look around and people are like, and you're like, oh my God, right? And you're like, wow, that was hilarious, people, right? So what is it? What do you do internally to get your head back in the game, to keep going? Right, to come back, to rise and like get their attention again? And is there something specific that you tell yourself, or like a line, or like a like a rally talk inside your brain that's like, come on, come back from this? Do you have something like that to keep going?
Oh, me definitely. I think one of my things, because a lot of people say, oh, you have a lot of energy. You have a lot of energy. Yes, but sometimes the energy is too much.
Yeah.
So I have to find myself and say, okay, let's do it. Look at someone that really, really is looking at you like this. And then I say something to this person, and then I come back to me, because I feel that connection. Anneli was talking about connection before, and I think you need to have that connection that brings you back to the moment that you're having fun and you're enjoying.
That.
Anneli, you want to add anything?
Yeah, happy to add. It's interesting because we do our work in order to connect with the audience. And you're so right. If we lose connection with ourselves, we've automatically lost connection with the audience. So we actually have to be really vigilant around, am I in this moment? Am I in my body? Am I with these people? Or am I distracted and thinking about something else? Because you can tell, we can all sniff it, right? And I remember, quick example, clicking through slides and they're not the slides I expect. Sometimes they've got the wrong version. God knows what happens with these things. Flicking, wrong slide. And I think, okay, this is now popcorn slides and I don't know what's coming next. And so I said, okay, turn to the person next to you, have a conversation about blah, and go for 5 minutes. And meanwhile, I'm doing tech stuff because there's so much that I can just wing and hold if I'm also trying to manage several things. I'm like, okay, I can do that and still be connected. And then there are some things that just pull me all the way out. And that was something that I felt myself just really quickly get pulled right out. And I thought, I need to sort this, change this, or do something drastically different in order to keep going.
For me, there are few things that I do that really work for me. Number one, having a key slogan as a speaker is really helpful. So I used to speak to students, right? And my thing was and I teach them right before I start my session, after I have the initial inertia built. Whenever I ask you, who are you? You're going to say, we are champions. So the audience is not engaging, or the joke did not land, and they're just listening to me. Okay, let's do this on a count of 3 2 and 1. Who are we? We are champions. So that's a little trick that kind of works. Number one. Number two is basically when you have audiences in front, like you have some like you have some programmed people in the audience. Like that when you're going to look at them, they're going to you know so you need that, right? So you need Marta Pardos in your room who love you, who are taking care of you, and who you can look back to. So that's the second part that's really helpful. The third thing that really helps me is when you have done these engagements over and over again. Like today I was doing an engagement over here after a while for speakers. Now I only do that. There were jokes that really landed in another speaking engagement and it did not land over here. What do I go about it? Well, just know that you have content after that. Like, if people don't, you are the only one who knows that your joke did not land. The audience does not know that.
Yeah, your audience here weren't dating anybody.
Exactly. Exactly. So you keep moving, and that makes a difference. I have stuff ahead of me, I'd say. Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you. Okay. So next question. How much of holding attention is about content? So we talked about delivering value. So how much is about holding content and how much is about energy, rhythm, or vulnerability?
I can start with that. So first thing over here is if you're coming in from a place of credibility, like high credibility, everything changes, right? So like the president of Singapore does not have to be funny for people to listen to him, right? If you're not coming from a place of authority or high up in the level, it's a little bit of both of it, right? But that's the generic answer. Let's make it fun. The first thing over here is to make sure that whenever you're giving content, you're giving value to people, right? I can say that Nepal is beautiful, or I can say we live right beneath the highest peak in the world. Or I can say that when the world is chasing the highest buildings in the world, I had the biggest building of the world gifted by God right there, Mount Everest. So there is content being the base and then finding a way to make it interesting through energy, through humor, all of that. To be honest with you, even if you deliver not a lot of good content, but you have high energy, people are going to say you were a good speaker. That's the truth. That's the truth. I did not get what he was saying, but he was saying it good. But
well, you see that a lot.
Exactly.
To be fair, it's like, and actually, that's one of my biggest fears, that like people don't remember what I spoke about on stage, right? People remember you as the funny one or like the the really authentic one, but they don't remember a word of what you said, right? So yeah, I suppose really what we keep coming back to from the start is that you really have to deliver value. You really have to be giving the audience something meaningful,
right?
And you have to be credible, and you have to build that credibility and earn that trust, right? But there are fun ways to do it.
Yeah,
then.
if you have a burger, you have to have the bun.
Yeah. Yeah.
Otherwise, it's not a burger. So the content is at the core of it.
Yeah.
And then everything else. You can choose to
Fair.
have pickles or not have pickles,
Fair.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to ask the next question. You're not allowed to say jump out of a box because that's now officially my thing. But what's one unconventional way that you earn trust before you even try to earn attention? And does trust have to come before attention, or is it the other way around? Marta.
Well, I think for me that works is right at the beginning. For me, trust is the eye contact. That's one of the first things. Unconventionally, I can do it in a very sensitive way. No, trust is really people need to see you as who you are actually. And when you are confident, when you're saying something and the way you're walking and getting on stage, at the same time you're looking at people because you know what you're saying is the right thing. I think that's the most beautiful, way to gain that confidence. Unconventionally, you can do it in a different way. You have to see me tomorrow.
Okay, I can't wait. I can't wait. Anneli.
I love this question so much because are we going with trust first or are we going with connection or content, right? And I think our default would be to assume that we need to earn trust, credibility, why am I on the stage and things like that. And I play with this all the time in the stuff that I do. So when I'm talking about communication and connection and influence, I actually play with the audience's level of trust because I'm operating or I'm wanting to earn trust on two levels. I want to assume credibility trust. Otherwise, I shouldn't be on the stage. So I want to assume that they've given that to me already. But the other thing I want them to trust me with is that this is going to be a great experience. That I want them to know you're in for a great ride. This is not a passive exercise here. You're going to be part of this and it's going to be fun and interesting and engaging. And so for me, I might break trust at the beginning as a jolt or some kind of surprise, which I often do. So I remember once doing something where I basically snapped at someone, one of the organisers, like, that's not what I want. No, that's not what I want. You know, some kind of, really mean statement, which is not me. Shake it off. It's not how I roll. But I wanted to make a statement. I wanted the audience in the room to go, ooh, I wouldn't do that. She wouldn't do that. I can't believe she did that in front of us. And then turn and smiles and everything's fine. And then stop and go, did you notice this just happened? How did you feel when you observed that? How did you feel about that person I was doing that to? What did you think about me as I was doing that? Now I'm here to talk about connection and influence and engagement. And I'm just behind the scenes snapping at people. And so that is a breach of trust, I would say, that because they don't think that I'm matching up to who I'm supposed to be, but it builds trust in that, oh, this is going to be interesting. We're going somewhere with this. She's not just going to talk stuff at us. We're going to experience. We are part of the co-creation of the rest of this content.
I love that. Thank you.
Yeah. To add to that, right, if I see a trust, it's a very broad word. Right? If I were to break it down for myself, I trust my mom, I trust my dad, I trust my siblings, but actually trust them because they're relatable. Like they are one amongst me. So my thing when I'm trying to get on the stage is to let the audience know that, hey, I don't want to establish authority when I'm getting on the stage. I don't want to show up as an expert because my intro has done that for me already. When I'm going on a stage, I'm saying, okay, my first thing I say is I remember I'm 21 years old right now and I hate sitting in classrooms and listening to people. I remember being in the class and acting to the teacher like, but beneath it was like, So like, I want to make sure the audience knows that, hey, I feel where you are at. I understand where you're at. I feel where you're coming from. And then trying to establish of why they should, trust me in terms of what happened in my personal journey. And then I like sharing my personal story before I go into the context and the content side and stuff like that. So yeah, that's how I go about doing it.
Just for clarity, you're not 21 right now, are you?
Now. I'm one.
I don't relate to you at all.
That's not.
You are not one of us.
Not any better.
No, thank you.
Can we say we are double plus? Double plus your age?
Say I'm the half,
Yeah. Okay, fine. We'll still love you. Happy. Okay. In the interest of time, thank you all so much for that. We're going to do a rapid fire round. Please respond in no more than like 1 to 2 words. You get 1 sentence if you really want, okay? Anneli, we start with you. What's your secret sauce for starting strong on stage or screen?
Surprise.
Happy.
Energy.
Marta.
I was going to say surprise, so I say story.
Ooh, nice. Okay, Marta, 1 word your audience should feel within the first 30 seconds of hearing you.
Live.
Ooh.
Champion.
Hooked.
Ooh, love it. Biggest attention killer you see people do all the time. Happy.
Blabber.
Anneli.
Verbal tics.
Oh, okay, good one. Marta.
When your voice is all the time and the same.
Monotony. I used to have a lecturer at dental school. I won't name him, but I don't think I stayed awake through a single lecture. It's lucky it's lucky I don't do root canals anymore. Okay. Number 4, a sound, silence, or gesture you use intentionally to draw people back in. We already know yours, Happy, so you go first.
Whoa, we are champions.
Okay, Anneli.
Pause.
Marta. You really do that?
Oh, yes.
Oh, I love it. I love that. Okay. If attention were a superpower, what would your superhero name be? So like grabbing attention was a superpower. What would your superhero name be? Marta.
Actually, it's the audacious Vroomer.
Ooh, I like that. Okay. Happy?
Champion baby.
Champion. Okay.
Myself as a kid.
Okay. I don't know if I want that superhero coming out to help
No,
me.
you're not my audience, you know.
Yeah, okay. Clearly, I'm too old.
Written over here, so it's okay. We have too
Anneli.
many adult superheroes. We need a
true.
we need a
That's true.
superhero who's wearing a diaper.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Fair.
Yeah.
Fair. Okay, overshare. Anneli.
Maybe I should be the babysitter? I don't know. Let's go with that because I really can't think of one.
Yeah.
0 ideas. I'm going with that. I'm your babysitter.
Okay. I love that. I think mine would be Humor Mama. So thank you all so much for being here. Do any of you have any closing comments or burning statements that you want to make sure that our audience get today?
I would leave our audience with this idea. You can be as fancy as you like, you can be as rehearsed as you like, you can do all the right things, but if you are not you amplified, it is not going to land the way it could. Just be you.
Love it. Go on, Happy.
Your stage starts before you get on the stage. So make sure you show up every single moment, every single place in social media where people are looking up as the person you intend to be perceived as. So show up as who you are. Show up as how people want you to be how you want people to perceive you. Yeah.
Thank you. Marta?
And I will finish. I will say that it's so important, the attitude and the personality that shows up that you are the right person for that speech. And so for me, when we're talking about amplify your imagination, imagine how can you be on stage and people will love you.
Thank you all so much. This has been incredibly fun, more fun than I could have imagined, even though I knew this is going to be the best podcast panel. But thank you for being here with me today and for giving up your time and for actually all of you flying into Singapore to be here for the convention. And thank you for joining us for this episode of the Amplify Imagination podcast, where ideas ignite, voices rise, and the future gets a little bit bolder and louder. Keep daring, keep dreaming, and above all, keep amplifying. Thank you.